I'll call to order the City of Apache Junction Planning and Zoning Commission for Tuesday, January 22nd, 2019. It is now 7 p.m. And if everyone would please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please, Rudy.
Commissioner Uli.
Here.
Chairwoman Nesser.
Present.
Commissioner Howard.
Here.
Vice Chair Heck.
Present.
Commissioner McGraw.
Here.
Commissioner Kreidler.
Here.
6 present. We have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Okay. The next item is the approval of the agenda.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission accept the agenda as presented.
Okay. Can I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Is there any discussion on this motion? Hearing none. Rudy, roll call, please.
Chairwoman Nesser.
Yes.
Commissioner Howard.
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck.
Yes.
Commissioner McGraw.
Yes.
Commissioner Kreidler.
Yes.
Commissioner Uli.
Yes.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Okay, we'll move on to approval of the minutes of December 11th, 2018. Do I have a motion?
Yes, Madam Chair. I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission approve the minutes from the December 11th, 2018 meeting.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion on this motion?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
same thing is always the same. The accuracy of the minutes doesn't explain any details or anything like that as far as what was said, as far as any type of detailed description of what was said by anything in the hearings.
Okay. Excuse me. Excuse my throat. Roll call vote, please, Rudy.
Commissioner Howard.
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck.
Yes.
Commissioner McGraw.
Yes.
Commissioner Kreidler.
No.
Commissioner Uli.
Yes.
5 in favor, 1 opposed. The motion passes, Madam Chair.
Okay. Public hearings. There is no public hearings. We'll move on to any old business. Doesn't look like any. New business. We have the issue at hand of election of a chair and a vice chair. So the procedure that we don't do often, where is it? No, it's right here.
Have to make a motion.
Oh, well, it's right here. Okay. I'll open up the nominations for the 2019 chair.
I think I have to make a motion first.
Right, and I'm opening the
I'm sorry.
nominations.
Oh, okay, sorry.
So anyone can make a nomination.
Actually, I think you have to call for a motion to open.
To open them, yeah, that's.
Oh, I have to call to open the nominations.
That's what I was.
I just said it. I can open them.
It's a procedural weird thing that's outdated, but yes,
Well, I
you
wasn't
do.
going by
You
this
should
one. I
do
was
that.
going by the simplified one.
So, Madam Chair,
Yes,
I make a motion to open nominations for the chair and vice chair.
okay.
Second?
We have a second. Do we need a roll call vote then?
Yes, you do.
Okay, roll call vote.
Madam Chair, was that seconded by Commissioner Kreidler?
Yes,
Okay,
it
thank
was.
you. Vice Chair Heck.
Yes.
Commissioner McGraw.
Yes.
Commissioner Kreidler.
Yes.
Commissioner Uli.
Yes.
Chairwoman Nesser.
Yes,
Commissioner Howard.
Yes.
So moved, Madam Chair.
okay. Now I will open the nominations for the 2019 chair.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I nominate Teresa Nesser for the chair.
thank you. Any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Any other nominations? Hearing none, I will close the nominations. And I'll call for a vote.
We need a
Actually,
second, Madam Chair.
I'm sorry, you have to ask for a motion to
You
close
gotta ask-
nominations.
Oh,
So,
okay, I'll read from this paper instead of the shortened one.
Madam Chair,
Well, wait, let me find out so I do this right. Okay. I will call for a motion to close the nominations.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that we close, the nominations for the chair are closed.
And do we have a second?
I second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Madam Chair, question or point of order. So Vice Chair Heck nominated you,
Yes.
and then Vice Chair Heck motioned to close the nomination without a second? What?
Oh,
No.
No, it was
Thought there was a
seconded.
second.
It was seconded.
Yeah,
Didn't
I
Shirley-
seconded.
Shirley,
Surely
I'm
seconded.
sorry, okay. We didn't call, do we need to call a roll call vote on that?
I think you should, yes.
It doesn't say, but
Okay, all right,
Anytime there's a motion and a second.
motion and a second, there's a roll call vote.
right. Okay, so Commissioner McGraw,
Yes.
Commissioner Kreidler,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes,
Chairwoman Nisser,
Yes.
Commissioner Howard,
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck.
yes.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you, everyone. And I will then call for a nomination for, or wait a minute, let's go back. Do we have to open the nominations again for the vice chair?
You have to have a motion.
You have to vote.
Or just
Yep.
go to a motion to vote? I mean, you know,
You still have to, you close nominations, you did the vote on that. Now you do the vote on,
well, now we have to, but do we have to open the nominations again for the vice chair?
before you do that, I think you need the vote on the chair.
We just
We
did.
just did.
I thought that was to close nominations.
That was. I need to vote on the
chair.
person who was
Yeah.
nominated for the chair.
That was to close.
okay.
Okay, now, goodness gracious,
Then do I need to make a motion?
we'll make a motion to vote. Or,
Approve this, not the slate, but
Okay.
approve the
So,
person that you nominated.
Madam Chair,
yes,
I move that Tess Nesser be accepted as chair of the commission.
that's a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
Motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes,
Chairwoman Nisser,
Yes.
Commissioner Howard,
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck,
Yes.
Commissioner McGraw,
Yes.
Commissioner Kreidler.
Yes.
6 in favor, so moved, Madam Chair. Congratulations.
Thank you. Now, since we made a motion to close the nomination, do I have to we make a motion now to
Open.
reopen them for the vice chair?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay,
So-
so I will call for a motion to open the nominations for vice chair.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that the nominations be open for the vice chair.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Chairwoman Nisser,
Yes.
Commissioner Howard,
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck,
Yes.
Commissioner McGraw,
Yes.
Commissioner Kreidler,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli.
Yes,
So moved, Madam Chair.
Okay, now I will call for a motion for a nomination. Or we'll call for nominations. It's not a motion. Does anyone want to nominate someone?
Madam Chair,
Yes,
I'd like to nominate Commissioner McGraw for vice chair.
we have a nomination, and any other nominations?
I nominate Peter Heck.
We have a second nomination. Any other? Do we have any other nominations? Do we have any other nominations? I will close the nominations, and we need a motion to close the nominations.
Yes.
So can I have a motion to close the nominations?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I make a motion to close the nominations for vice chair.
Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner Howard, Vice Chair Heck,
Yes.
Commissioner McGraw,
Yes.
Commissioner Kreidler,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes,
Chairwoman Nisser.
Yes.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Now I will call for a motion on the first nomination of Michael, wasn't it? Yes.
Yes.
So, do someone want to make a motion?
So-
Or,
Yep.
yes,
So, Madam Chair,
Yeah.
I move that the vote take place for the first nominee, Michael McGraw.
do we have a second?
Second.
And roll call vote, please.
Vice Chair Heck,
Yes.
Commissioner McGraw,
Yes.
Commissioner Kreidler,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
no,
Chairwoman Nesser,
Yes.
Commissioner Howard.
Now we're,
Yes.
5 in favor, 1 against, so Commissioner McGraw is our new vice chair.
no, that was opening for the that was, I mean, we have to vote then for
Peter.
me, right?
But,
No, because the first
Because-
one who wins, and then that's it. So Mr. McGraw is now the vice chair.
if that
Okay,
had, if that had failed,
Okay.
there's no sense holding a vote on a second one.
Correct.
When the other person.
Okay.
Okay,
I didn't, that was not what I was thinking, so is there a way to request a
Yes.
Well,
vote on that?
There's a way to do a motion for reconsideration, yes.
Okay,
but it must be
By the prevailing.
by the
side.
prevailing
Whoever
party.
voted on the prevailing side.
So anyone who voted yes can call for a revote.
Well,
Or-
it'd be a motion for reconsideration that
Or
would have to be
reconsider.
put on at the next meeting.
Okay,
oh, not again, not,
Not tonight.
not,
not now.
Not tonight.
It has to be, but you can call for it to be on there tonight, right now.
No.
Well, you could do a motion for reconsideration, and then you can discuss whether there should be a reconsideration. But then that would have to be put on for the next meeting.
see, I thought we were voting to open the nominations for the first person, and then we agree to that, then we vote.
Okay?
That was my,
Did you happen, Rudy, did you catch the way it was phrased? I'm not sure it was phrased that way. The vote, the motion.
The motion for the nominations for vice chair.
Yeah, when Mr. Heck made his last motion.
We had 2 nominations.
Right. Commissioner Kreidler nominated Commissioner McGraw. Commissioner Uli nominated Commissioner Heck. And then they voted to
Close the
close the
nomination.
nomination. And then we went on to the vote for Commissioner McGraw. And that was a 5-1
Right.
vote in favor.
Yeah, but was that to vote on Mr. McGraw? Do you remember how it was
It was.
phrased? Okay, I think it was too.
That's how I
I
understand.
thought I said to open the,
Well, the opening of the nominations was when
all right, well,
Kreidler and Uli nominated McGraw and Heck.
This is where Stephen's issue has been not having, because we don't have a transcriptionist here taking,
Well, we're in the moment now. There are no minutes yet. So
so
that
there
doesn't
are
really
none.
apply.
So if that is an issue, that can always be dealt with later.
If someone believes this was too confusing, then someone could do a motion for reconsideration. And then we could set it up for the next meeting. And then if Development Services wants to, they can do a verbatim of this portion of the meeting if they feel that's necessary.
But at this point, we're going to move on to.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
at this point, we need to make a motion to close the voting
Oh,
before
you're
moving
right.
on.
I'm sorry.
So I will make that motion right
Okay,
now.
we have a motion. Do we have a second to close the voting on the vice chair?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote?
Vice Chair Heck,
yes,
Commissioner McGraw,
Yes.
Commissioner Kreidler,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Chairwoman Nesser,
Yes.
Commissioner Howard.
Yes.
So moved, Madam Chair.
Okay, we'll move on to presentation and discussion on conflicts of interest, open meeting law, public record law, and parliamentary procedures by the city attorney.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
members of the commission, where would you like to start? Which color do you like the best? Let me ask you that.
Madam
Well,
Chair,
let's see, open meeting law, conflict.
Madam Chair.
Yes,
I believe that we should just go in order as it's listed on the agenda.
that's a good idea, I suppose.
If that's how you want to proceed, that's fine. We can start anywhere you want.
Yeah,
legally,
let's
'cause
just
it's all
go
on
with
the
the
agenda.
way it's listed on the agenda.
If that's how you want to go, that's fine. Okay, conflicts of interest, that's the orange copy.
Actually, point of order, parliamentary procedure is
First,
the first
first
item.
one.
I'm sorry, it's 1905. Oh, you know what? This laptop does not show exactly what you have here.
It's on the screen in front of you. Is your screen on, the Dell?
It is on.
The one we're looking, look it up here on the wall
Yes.
behind us.
Here.
This doesn't show that.
Oh, yeah.
My apologies, Mr. Kryler, you're right. Okay. Then let's go with the green copy. This is a new one. You have not seen this in this form before. So, the mayor actually asked for this to be drafted, and I did, right after the election. He asked that to be put on in 6 months, so we're about the 6-month mark. And essentially, what are the rules of the game when you are in here for procedure? And the code says the council is to use parliamentary procedure. And that's been applied in the past to boards and commissions. Many times, parliamentary procedure has no application to what you do. And the history behind it is there was a Army officer who was put in a position where he had to go to a church meeting. He didn't know what he was doing. And so after the meeting, he said, what happened there? I don't know, I don't understand this. So he wanted to have rules. And so he came up with his own rules. So it's Henry Martin Robert from 1837 to 1923. That's how long he lived. And he came up with Robert's Rules, Pocket Manual of Rules of Order for Deliberative Assemblies, also known as Robert's Rules. And like I said, they weren't meant for city councils and board of supervisors, but they've been applied over the years to those public bodies. And so the city does and has adopted them. Although, once again, sometimes they're just not applicable. And sometimes they're tedious and there's really no need to have them. The whole point of procedure is that everybody get a fair chance when they vote, when they discuss, including the public, but also the board itself. And that's really the purpose of these rules. And so I am the parliamentarian under the code, and I get to interpret them for the council and for the boards and commissions. And so sometimes I'll say, well, that doesn't really apply, and sometimes we don't even follow them because it's just too tedious, like I said before. However, generally you can follow them, and we have followed them. Like tonight, we did the appointments or nomination of officers, and we didn't do everything to the rule, but it's close enough, and everybody got their say in it. There may have been some misunderstanding. If there was misunderstanding, there could be, and there could be a motion for reconsideration. That's one of the motions you can do, actually, and that's listed under, let's see, page 3. It's one of the motions you can do. I'm sorry, it's under page 2, last paragraph or third paragraph up. But anyway, you got to have a quorum. There has to be a majority vote for something that passes. Minority views can be heard and considered, but once again, it's the majority that counts. One question at a time is to be considered. Voting members are to be impartial and should seek recognition from the chair before speaking and should never express personal attacks. Other than that, it's pretty simple, except sometimes the rules are just too tedious to apply. Any questions on parliamentary procedure?
What is the state's position as far as administrative procedure trickling down from the state level to the county and city levels?
Administrative procedure, I don't understand the question.
State administrative procedures as far as following and adapting Robert's rules as far as the procedure for any type of rule or meetings from the state level trickling on down to the local municipalities.
I know of no case law that says you have to follow parliamentary procedure at the local level, if that's what you're getting at.
I recall reading in state law someplace, whether it was state administrative procedure or in the Arizona revised statutes, that Robert's Rules, or maybe it was in the state constitution, that Robert's Rules was adapted as the official decorum to be used within any type of government meetings.
You may have been looking under Title 42 that talks about the state. The state in their boards and commissions and legislative bodies probably have to follow Robert's Rules to a certain degree, but not exactly. I don't think they do. They don't exactly follow them, because I've watched legislative procedures and they certainly don't. They do whatever they want. But as for application to the city, there's no mandate. Otherwise, the city wouldn't have had a city code that says they adopt them. It's up to the city to adopt whatever rules they want. And other
Right,
cities
right.
have adopted other rules.
Because I know the city did adopt a 1999 edition of Robert's Rules. Actually, you have it noted here. The Webster's New World Robert's Rules of Order. That was adapted as the,
Correct. That was specifically adopted. I was there when they did that, and Mr. Joe Durbala, he wanted that version, because that's the one he liked. And so that is the one we use, and it comes from Robert McConnell, that's the distributor, and that's the one we use. And I think as revised, so I think it's on the third revision from that particular book.
okay, so to the best of your knowledge, there is no mandate from the state as far as procedural issues then, in utilizing Robert's Rules from the state on down
Not
to
as a
county
mandate.
and city level.
Not as a mandate, not that I have seen.
Okay.
And I know other cities have passed it. In fact, Mesa specifically says that they don't follow Robert's Rules. They have their own procedure. And, they're fair rules. It's just not Robert's Rules. Now, some legislatures in other states, California, they reject Robert's Rules because they're just not applicable. And they have a different rule book that they go by. So, but we do use these generally, and we follow them as I interpret them. Okay, next, conflicts of interest. That's the orange copy. I made some adjustments on some of the case law that's in here, but essentially, it's the same that you've seen before. I did add removal from appointed office. That's a new section. But basically, what is the purpose of the conflict of interest law? Essentially, it is to remove or limit the possibility of personal influence which might bear upon a public official's decision. Purpose is to prevent self-dealing by public officials and public employees. The financial interests of public officials or employees must not conflict with the unbiased performance of their public duties. One cannot serve two masters with conflicting interests. So what is a substantial interest conflict? Essentially, it's a pecuniary or proprietary interest. If you have one of those, you as a board member should recuse yourself, and you should not be voting on it or acting on it, and you should not be influencing others on how to vote on that also. Why should you care? There's some penalties if you violate it, and a court of law essentially orders, they could order that the item is null and void. There could be private lawsuits from other parties. There's also fines that could occur. Now, there's something called a remote interest. That's when, there might be an interest, but it's so remote in application that it's not going to be applied against someone who has a conflict. And I've listed them A through L, and that's directly from the statute. The most common one I've seen is the one that talks about where you are one in a class of 10 or more, and that's under J. The best example of that I've seen in this city is there was a church that wanted to have a steeple, and the steeple was going to be, I forget how tall, but it was going to be well over what the code allowed, so they needed a CUP at the time. And on the council, there was a council member who was a member of that church. So would that person have a conflict of interest because they're a member of that church and an active member? And the answer is no, because they were in a class of 10 or more persons that shared the same interests. So they could vote on that item, and they did. I will let you read the rest of this, except that if you have a conflict, or you think you might, or you think you might not, but you want someone else to look at it, the way you protect yourself is you come to me, and I will gather the facts that you give me, and I will make a determination. And I will then do a written opinion on it. And say it's something you kind of want to vote on, but you really want my opinion to have backup, because you know you're going to get criticized because it might look bad. Well, I will look at the facts, and I will determine legally whether there's a conflict. And if, say, I find there is no conflict, and I will call you, I will tell you how I determined it, and then I'll, at your request, I'll put it in writing, and then that writing will then be filed with the city clerk's office. And then you could use that memo, that determination, when you vote, especially if someone is accusing you of having a conflict. If I said you didn't, then you don't, and you can vote on the item. Now, if I'm wrong, Rudy, have I been wrong before?
Never.
No, okay. Well, Larry would have answered that differently, but say I'm wrong. You still can rely, you would have relied on that when you voted, and so nothing will happen to you because you relied on the city attorney's decision.
So may I ask a question? Oh,
Please.
So let's say, another scenario on that, let's say there is a person, could be a city council, board, commission, who doesn't approach you, who doesn't feel or believe that they are in a conflict of interest with a person, with a particular situation. But when the time comes and there's a vote, if it goes counter to what others had perceived, could that create a problem for that particular public body, because they could be calling into question that person's objectivity or what have you?
Yes, if there was, say someone challenged it from the public, because say it was a 4-3 vote, so one vote would have mattered, and someone challenges it in court, and they were able to prove that the person knew that they had a conflict, and they didn't want to come to me because they didn't want to get the determination, or for whatever reason, they just didn't feel it necessary. That could be a problem, and that would be a problem for the person who voted, especially if there was an intent to essentially violate the law. It could also be a problem for the city because there could be lawsuits, and there could be fees or fines. So if you feel you have a conflict, or even there's an appearance of impropriety, you probably should contact me, and I'll be happy to talk to anybody, anytime, about any issue. Be happy to do that.
Okay.
I had a
you.
conflict once. I don't remember what it was even back. I don't know if anybody else was even here.
I don't
But,
recall
yeah.
you ever claiming you did.
I had to leave, go out the door, and,
I know
you
it's
know.
happened at city council once or
Yeah.
twice, yeah.
Madam Chair.
yes.
Joel, so I heard you say a couple of times that it doesn't have to be a public espousal of a possible conflict. They can actually just come to you privately to get the decision from you. Then does it become public that your decision, does that decision then become public for everybody to know that there was a conflict for this person and this is the reason why?
You can come to me in private. I'll talk to you about it. And then if a written opinion is going to be made, because you want me to do a written opinion, I will do it. And then that written opinion will be filed with the city clerk's office and be a public record. Now, if there was not a public opinion on it or a written opinion, then no, there won't be. No one's going to know that you came to me because that's attorney-client
I
privilege.
think that was the situation with mine. I had a conflict. I went to Joel, and he said yes, but I don't remember of anything in writing. I just recused myself, but
Yeah, usually if you want to sometimes these things are hard to get out of. Some votes are hard to get out of because they're difficult. But you have to have a true conflict in order to not vote. You can't just say, well, I abstain. You can't do that in this state. You have to have a reason to abstain. If you don't have a reason to abstain, the vote's counted as a yes. Now,
Even if before the vote you say, you know, I am claiming that I have a conflict of interest and I,
that's different. If you say I have a conflict, I'm conflicting
you
out.
don't have to disclose what the conflict is,
No.
you just have to say,
You say,
I
I
have a
just feel
conflict.
I have a conflict, Madam Chair, and I am
Okay,
stepping
all right.
out. And that means you leave, it's best to leave the dais.
Right.
It's best to leave the room.
Right.
And then, that we'll call you back in. That's the better practice to do it. Some in the past have stayed in their chair. They've made faces during some public hearings, like 10, 12 years ago on some nasty zoning cases. And that's not good. That's not good to do.
But you don't have to give any reason or tell anyone
No,
else or explain anything.
Absolutely not. You just say, I believe I have a conflict of interest, and I am going to step out and not vote on this item.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I know we saw that during one of the council meetings where the party said it was okay for that particular council person to stay because they understood what their conflict was, but they were okay with that. Do you find that happen often?
I have not found that often, and even if that did happen, I would say you can't waive a conflict of interest.
Okay.
So if you have one, even the member of the public says, hey, no problem at all. It's like, no, you have a conflict. You need to not vote on the item.
I just thought it was unusual coming from the party who was making the presentation said, you know, yes, that person recused themselves, but I was okay if they had not.
Right.
I thought that was interesting.
Yes, that was, and I haven't seen that before, and that may have been a political issue, but no, that I don't usually see.
Yeah.
But I have seen in the past would say, hey, no problem, you can vote on this. I want you to vote on this.
Yeah.
Well, if there's a conflict, how do you know that person's going to vote their way?
There's a conflict.
Yeah, and it shouldn't. If you have a conflict, you need to not vote on the item.
Anyone else? Anything else?
All right. Shall we move on to the blue public of record law? This one you've heard before also, and I added a bunch of cases in the back, and I'll let you read those. But the crux of the public record law is everything done in public, everything that's written down and is kept in the business of the city is a public record, and it is subject to disclosure when someone requests it or wants to look at it. And there's procedures to get there on how to do that. And there's theories behind why everything should be in public. It's for transparency. The core purpose is to allow public access to official records and other governmental information so that the public may monitor the performance of government officials and their employees. What is a public record? It's basically any writing. It's also electronic. Tonight, you're being taped, or not taped, but you are being recorded, and that recordation is a public record. Someone could ask for a recording, and we would provide it to them, even though they can go on the internet and still get it. That doesn't matter. If we were asked to provide it, we would, and we can also charge for that. When someone asks for the public records, how much time does staff have to give it to them? The law changed a number of years ago. It didn't say, and then it went to, it has to be promptly provided. And of course, the legislature didn't define promptly. So there's been case law that does define promptly or attempts to, and I've listed it. Term promptly also, well, means the agency's, it's based on the agency's resources, nature of the request, content, and location of the records. Mere inconvenience to staff to service the request does not warrant a delay. term also means quick to act or do what is required or without delay. So what does that mean? I got a subpoena request once for a federal case. And I was told, okay, there's 1,500 documents that I have to go through, and I would have to redact. So what, am I supposed to just stop everything else and work on that? Well, almost. That's how I pretty much observe what promptly means. I mean, if there's emergencies, of course, I'm gonna get those done, but I'm not just gonna let it sit for weeks or days. I have to get to it, and then I have to redact it. I then would return it to the city clerk's office when there's a request. The city clerk would then collect the fees and then disclose it. So there is a process, especially when there's confidential information that needs to be redacted. There are some exceptions, and those are extreme exceptions, especially if they're not statutory. If they are statutory, then that's easy. You say, well, no, ARS section blank says you don't get this, like a victim's address. That's a good one, but there's many others. There's also privacy interests, and also number 3, best interests of the state. And those cases deal with police records. However, it applies to other types of privacy and other best interests of the state. So in order to deny someone a request, the city would have to prove and actually have justifiable reasons to deny it. Say, well, these are privacy interests of this individual, and you have to show why are they private, especially if they're not statutorily recognized. The harder case is the best interest of the state, because that phrase is subject to case review and interpretation. So a police officer's file, for example, is that subject to disclosure? Yes. However, you take out the privacy matters. So what if that officer was had a internal affairs investigation, and they were found to have violated some rules? Is that subject to the open meeting law and disclosure? Yes, it is. In this state, it is. Some other states, it is not. And also, another problem that comes up is when the city is in, say, a criminal case. So we're in criminal litigation, and the defendant wants to get everything. The way they can get it is they do a public record request. Even though in most cases, there's something called Rule 15 of the criminal rules, we have to give them that information anyway. But if they do a separate public record request, we have to give them that disclosure also. We can charge them in that case, but it's just strange how sometimes that works out. Same with litigation, civil litigation. We can be involved in civil litigation. There could be interrogatories. There could be requests for admissions. These are civil procedures to get information. And you could be in the discovery phase, which could last a year. Well, sometimes the plaintiff doesn't want to wait. And so what they'll do is they'll do a public record request. And so we have to respond to those. Who can obtain public records? Pretty much anybody. And they don't have to have a reason either. They don't have to state why. And we honor that. We don't ask why. We can charge a fee, and also if it's a commercial use, we can charge another fee, which we have set by ordinance, and it's 50 cents a page, otherwise it's 25 cents a page. We can also charge for CDs if we put anything on a CD, like if someone wanted to have the recording of this, we'll put it on a CD and we'll charge, I think it's $10 currently. And what you're charging for is not the time and effort it takes to get the item on the disk, but it's just the disk. That's the disk cost. And same with the paper. When you give out paper, you're charging for the cost of the paper. You're not charging for the research time. And actually, you're not, under the Public Records Act, you don't have to do research for someone. They might want you to, And we get those all the time, saying, I want research, or I want all the litigation you've done in the last 10 years. Well, that is not a valid request, because that's a research request, and we don't have to do it, and no court would enforce that. Even though some people think they know the law, and they think they're gonna get the city, and they might file something. Okay, moving on. Why should you care? Well, we care as staff because the fees, or the court fees on this, if the city loses, and we did lose one back in 2001, and we didn't lose it, it was our risk pool that I think had an issue. And there was a settlement agreement that was done on a very high-profile case, on a police case. And the press wanted that settlement agreement. So the attorney for the pool, the risk pool, said, no, you're not getting that. That's confidential. You're not going to find out how much the city paid out on that case. Well, we got sued, and essentially we lost it because they represented us, but still, we had to pay money on that, and there was an attorney fee on that of $39,000 that the city had to pay because this attorney didn't want to give it out. The city still had to pay it, and I said, let's never use that attorney again, please. But let's see. Other than that, you have the general law, which I will let you just read for yourself. Okay, last one. Open meeting law. All meetings of a public body shall be public meetings, and all persons so desiring shall be permitted to attend and listen to the deliberations and proceedings. All legal action shall occur in public. And then when you have public hearings, the public has a right to participate, and they can speak, and they let known their opinion on whatever issue you're talking about. Why should anybody care about the open meeting law? Well, there's other reasons. If you don't, what happens? The action could be nullified if you violate it. There's also the Attorney General, County Attorney could come in and investigate the city. There's also some liability, some fees, there's criminal fees. And then aside from those statutory kind of things, there could be a recall. Because sometimes that might be what one member of the public wants to do because you didn't follow the open meeting law, or at least a council member. Not you, you guys can't be, you all cannot be recalled, but the city council can. And then, of course, there's the general embarrassment to the city, which is not good to have for violating something that really is statutory. It applies when there is a quorum present of a public body. A quorum in your case is at least 4 members are meeting. A meeting is the gathering in person or through technological devices of a quorum of members of the public body at which they discuss, propose, or take legal action, including any discussions, deliberations, or considerations, consultations by a quorum that may foreseeably require final action or a final decision of the public body.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Joel, the technological part, if there's 50 people on a website talking about a matter, and 4 of those people on that website happen to be part of a commission, is that considered a quorum, even though they're scattered throughout the audience?
If those members are talking about cases before the body and they're commenting on it, especially if they're really out there saying, well, I would vote this way, then absolutely. The Attorney General would probably find that there's a quorum, and so that would be a violation of the open meeting law. Absolutely would. That's why staying off social media as a planning and zoning member is a good idea. And you shouldn't comment on items that are coming before this board. Even if you declared a conflict, because then if you're still involved in it, you'd be exerting your influence as a P&Z member because people would probably know who you are, and they probably know who you represent. And it's really good to stay off social media on anything that comes before this board. We have to do the notice, there's an agenda, there's minutes. I'll let you read that. I took it directly from the state statute. And executive sessions, we don't have too many with planning and zoning. Council has more. We used to have a lot more when we had more development going on, because we would talk about proposed development agreements. So you occasionally see these, but there's other things that could come up during executive session, and I've listed them. There's six things, which I'll let you read for yourself. And of course, there are some exemptions on executive sessions. I'll let you read that, and also exemptions to the open meeting law. There's some, but they're limited. They're limited. For example, an HOA does not have to follow the open meeting law. It's not a public body. Social events. If you go to, say, a chamber event, and all of you decide to go, because it's fun to go to those things, is there an open meeting going on? Well, it's a social event. However, if someone complains to the Attorney General's office and says, "Wait, I heard Commissioner so-and-so talking about what's coming up on the next agenda," and there were 3 on one side of the room and another 4 on the other, but I saw them talking, what do you think the Attorney General's going to do? They're going to say there's an appearance of a violation, and they'll probably find us in violation. They'll probably fine the city, and there could be a public embarrassment at the very least. So when you do go to social events, try not to talk to each other, especially about items that are coming up, especially in that case. And I know some of you come to the council meetings. Is that a social event? No, that's a public meeting. You're allowed to be a resident, essentially, watching the proceedings. But I wouldn't stick around and talk about the issues even if it's not on the agenda, because it will look, there's an appearance there. You're always in the public eye, even if there's 1 or 2 of you. But you shouldn't talk about these things in the parking lot, because people drive by here and they might recognize you, and they'll say, "Hey, wait, there's 4 P&Z members talking after the meeting. What are they doing?" Before I started and a little bit after I started, back in the 90s, and Rudy probably will remember this, some P&Z members would go to Village Inn and some other businesses and talk about what happened during that night. And that is, I heard stories about that. And I did see that happening with some council members too. And I had to take some action on that. It's just not good to do that, especially in a restaurant where you don't know who's listening. Mm-hmm. But someone's listening. Believe me, they are. You are in the public eye. I think that is all I want to talk about, and I let you read the rest.
Anybody have any questions for Joel?
Question, Madam Chairman?
Yeah.
Larry, I went to a training session in December in Phoenix with a few of the Board of Adjustment members, and I asked if there was going to be any proceedings from that training, and I even came to the office and I asked, and could you follow up to see if there are any proceedings? I'd like to have that for a reference, if they are available.
I know that we got a copy of the PowerPoint presentation, and I believe we disseminated that. I don't know if the council got that. We can get that to the rest of you. I don't know if there were other materials that they did not leave you with any materials, is what you're saying?
No, they didn't leave us with any proceedings at all.
Okay, so all we really have is the PowerPoint slideshow that we can certainly
if you could do
But
that.
if there's no context to it, that's the only thing.
That-
We can certainly get that to you.
Okay, if you would, please.
Sure.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. Excuse me. We move on to presentation, discussion, and direction to staff on proposed request for a city-initiated rezoning of 1630 West Apache Trail, parcel 101-02-0620.
Commissioners, I want to introduce our new intern, Kelsey Shattuck. She's going to present this case. We're kind of easing her into the process here, so.
All right, so this is the request for a city-initiated rezoning from RVP to B2 PD of 1630 West Apache Trail. So on this location is currently the Prickly Pear RV Park, and so it's located west of Ironwood Drive and on the north side of Apache Trail. And it's important to note that there's also a billboard on this property, and it's located in the southeast corner, so kind of in the parcel shaped like a T. It's in the far lower right corner. So this property is actually located on 2 parcels, as you can see on this map, and it is currently zoned RVP, or Recreational Vehicle Park. The surrounding properties, there's quite a few different uses. They include RS20M to the west, RVP to the west and north, B1 to the north, B2 directly east, and B2 PD to the east and across the street, across Ironwood. So the planning staff sees this as an opportunity to eliminate 2 non-conforming uses on the property, one of which is the billboard and one of which is the RV park, because the RV park is not 10 acres in size, it's actually just under 2, and to allow for future commercial development on the property. So planning staff seeks the commission's direction to proceed with the city-initiated rezoning request of the Prickly Pear RV Park, which again is located at 1630 West Apache Trail, from Recreational Vehicle Park, RVP, to Old West Commercial by Plan Development, B2/PD. So any questions?
Yes, I have a question.
Surely.
Madam Chair, I'd like the explanation. What is B2/PD? Can you explain that to me?
Business.
So B2 is Old West Commercial, and in the code it says, generally intended for commercial uses located within the downtown transition area. And then PD is a plan development overlay, which is generally intended for site and building design flexibility.
Thank you.
Yes.
Madam
Peter?
Chair, Kelsey, so there are still, if we move forward with this rezoning, there are still several other parcels that are still RVP, zoned RVP. Is the plan to try and eventually bring this entire area into the B2 zoning? Is that down the road? Is that, maybe that's not for Kelsey?
I guess we could talk about during the general plan process. So if you do have some of these older uses, older parks, again surrounded by B1, B2 uses, the city has a lot of square footage of the city already in commercial zoning. So in this particular case, the owner, we talked to him, I think, first a year and a half or so ago. They became the owner, they cleaned up the park. We talked to them about the billboard. They had some demolition they wanted to do out front. They thought that with the corner property along Ironwood and Apache Trail, that it might have some value to someone, not necessarily them, maybe, but if the zoning was all the same, that a larger development could go in there. So already on the corner, you have a small insurance office, the sandwich shop, you have a auto repair, but looking forward, could be an opportunity for a larger redevelopment of that area. So we haven't specifically examined it. I know some of you were on the board when we did South Ironwood. We rezoned both sides of Ironwood from the trail down to Broadway in order, and that was mostly zoned B1 and B2, but we changed the setbacks to allow for redevelopment. So unless it comes up during the general plan process, the staff doesn't have a proposal to, for example, change the other 3 RVP properties on this that you're seeing in the map in front of you.
Okay.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Larry, how does Prickly feel about this? Is
Well-
it going to affect their business?
They approached the city, and the mutual interest was the removal of the billboard. So the city has been, in the sign code, billboards, any new billboard is prohibited. So when rezonings have taken place in the past, or conditional use permits, part of those negotiations were to remove a billboard as part of a PD overlay. So the developer gets something out of the deal in that the city can negotiate in a PD overlay what setbacks might be, or the zoning itself. So the city has an interest in removing the billboard, and they have an interest also. So they've been thinking about it. I think we approached them well over a year ago, and then they called Rudy, I would say, a couple months ago and said, okay, now we're ready to move forward. They thought long and hard about the billboard and a rezoning and the removal of the billboard. So they have been in contact with us. So it's not just the city coming in and saying, we want to rezone this to remove the billboard. We have been working with the owner for well over a year.
It's more than the billboard, though.
It's the potential redevelopment of that area. Now, again, they did clean it up, and much to the delight of some of the surrounding property owners. But I think they're also looking to position themselves. What's there is there and can stay there, but by having it zoned this way, then they could go out and try to market it as a commercial. Maybe they try to sell it to the neighbor. As far as we know, there's nothing pending. I think they're just looking forward in what the potential redevelopment of the area might
And
be.
this rezoning will be the impetus for them to get a better deal on that property than if they.
Perhaps,
left it the way it
sure.
is. Okay.
Yep.
Probably makes it more valuable.
All right.
Yeah, there's a current cash flow, obviously, that's there now, but they're also saying, well, if it were combined with some surrounding properties, if you look at the property here, perhaps it's combined with the property to the west. The T-shaped property might be better combined with this one. Maybe this property owner gets involved. So, and then I think if you generally look at Apache Trail and look at other cities, over time, having RV parks along, a main thoroughfare, generally kind of go bye-bye. Might use a different phraseology, but land uses change over time, and so generally they would go to a different location that the land becomes valuable along a commercial corridor. And I think they're just looking ahead. This person, I think, owns 2 other parks in the city, Rudy? Couple other parks.
Thank you.
That was gonna be my question.
Okay, anybody else? Okay. Thank you. Any direction? Staff?
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission direct staff to initiate a rezoning of Prickly Pear RV Park located at 1630 West Apache Trail from recreational vehicle park to Old West Commercial by planned development, which is B2/PD.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Commissioner McGraw,
Yes.
Commissioner Kreidler,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Chairwoman Nesser.
Yes.
Commissioner Howard,
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck.
Yes.
So moved, Madam Chair. We will work with the applicant and determine public hearing dates and come back to you probably in the next month or so.
Okay. We'll move on to information and reports. Anything?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Director's report. Got an update on the general plan?
Kelsey's handing out a handout. I'm going to see if I can learn how to do this. We've been trying to do a public outreach. I think I hit number 4. point at something. Hit number 4.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. First. This is the old system. I only went to one training. Do you know how to do this? Matt showed me right before the meeting. Matt still there? He's there, yeah. Well, I wanted the public to see, yeah. Rudy, I
You
thought we hit
killed it.
number 4. I thought we were doing this, there we go. I hit 4, so that came on.
No signal.
Might take a second to come on.
Well, he did it earlier, and it came right on. Lamp is on. Source. We have to call in the cavalry. There we go.
There it is. Never mind. We got it.
Oh, but you're not the winning side, so you,
All right.
oh, did you?
So just to give you a quick update, thank you, Matt, for almost being here for us. We're still, we've had monthly meetings internally with the various departments who are responsible for developing their portion of the plan. Recall, we have 12 elements of the general plan. We had a kickoff meeting. We've launched a website. We're trying to get surveys. We've had about 350 people respond to surveys. So now we're still trying to get folks to do the survey. So like this morning, we went to the Chamber of Commerce, to their board meeting, talked, just a 10-minute quick overview of the plan, asking folks to respond to the survey, get those numbers up. Survey, you don't have to necessarily be a resident because you can add at the survey whether you are or not. Our plan is to still have another meeting in June, general public, and start bringing a document before this commission, August, September, October, late August, September, October, November, get it into the council cycle so the council can adopt it February 4th of 2020, and it'll be on the ballot on August 20th, 2020. So, as you can see here, we've just been trying to get the word out. If you have a group that you're involved with, let us know. Again, it's a quick 10-minute presentation. We're happy to come and talk to anybody about the plan, about the process, because it does go to the voters. So we've talked to the Homeless Coalition. That's about 15 people that have monthly meetings. Again, this morning we went to the Chamber. We're going to the Community Development Corporation tomorrow. Friends of AJ is coming up. Next Monday is the council-appointed Youth Advisory Commission. So again, getting some younger folks involved in the process and getting them to answer the survey. So essentially we're doing a quick presentation and handing out the survey, leaving it with them, and then they can get it back to us. We have the survey at the counter, been able to do that. We had an short article a week ago Monday in the paper about the plan. Al Bravo from the Public Information Officer has been pushing it out on social media. That helped. I think we got over 100 surveys just by using social media. So I think that, although Joel said you can't use social media, but we are using social media to get the word out and direct people to the website. So you can see the various groups. We're going to the school district, the board meeting coming up, and then you'll see, we're just gonna have some booths at the festival, or at the marathon on Friday night, Saturday. That worked well last time, we thought, with the active transportation plan. The Blues and Brews Festival, have to call Gustavo Magru about going to, just having a booth at the farmer's market. And we'll just be there for a Saturday and try to let people know about what's going on and getting them to the
We
survey.
don't call it a farmer's market anymore because we couldn't get enough farmers.
So it's
It's a
a
bazaar.
fresh food market.
It's a bazaar,
It's a bazaar.
It's a bizarre market?
Well, we won't make
just
it,
a bazaar.
Oh,
we won't make it more of a
Earthart
bazaar.
Park Bazaar.
Earthart Park Bazaar. So some of these you can see that we're still organizing, but again, if we're going to the chamber, or the Rotary Club coming up in a few months. They were booked way out already, so at some point we'll try to pull all that data together and see what the survey says, so we let people know what we can at the next, I think it's a March open house. We'll try to compile as much data as we can.
Madam
So-
Chair,
Yes.
question. Larry, you don't have Lost Dutchman Days listed. I know you have the marathon.
We went last year for the active transportation plan, and we didn't really
Really?
have a lot of folks come by
One of
the
largest-
booth.
That's
And
probably one of the largest venues for for guests and visitors.
But I
Well,
mean,
you got a
I worked the
bazillion
city
booths and
booth,
stuff.
it was, and depending on the placement of the booth,
Didn't.
unless there's some giveaways or things like that, it's very difficult. I mean, the city had those bags, our little, that a lot of folks come and get, but I spent 2 days there, not last year, but the year before, and I don't even know if, I've talked to Al, I'm not sure the city was having a booth even.
Oh, okay.
And the city was, over the course of, 2.5 days, trying to get.
Giveaway
So
was
maybe we
open.
should be at the beer tent or something, I don't know. Maybe there's a bit different
Yes.
approach to that, I don't know, but
Craft beer.
we can rethink it, but I'm just telling you from
every-
our experience in the past.
Huge
Every
event.
survey they turn back in, they get a beer.
that
Yeah,
could work.
right.
Or a Diet Pepsi, whatever it is. So I just want you to know that things are moving along, moving forward, and we'll keep you apprised every once in a while, and hopefully we'll get our documents in shape by June, and then start bringing them here, probably a couple elements at a time. Joel's encouraging us to keep them short. We do have to publish this thing, so trying to keep the whole document under 150 pages or so. I think the current one's about 130, so. Again, it'll be just a short synopsis of what the element is, some goals, objectives, policies, kind of what the issues are, executive summary, et cetera.
Willie?
Sure. Larry, would there be an opportunity to share this at the State of the City?
Yes, we're talking about that. I didn't put it on here. I believe that's February 13th. We'll probably just be in the lobby with a little booth and some surveys. I know at the council meeting, they did show that, I think it kind of got up late at the end of the meeting here, but we had this open. I thought at one point Councilmember Evans was going to bring this up, but it just kind of showed up at the end of the meeting a week ago without a lot of explanation. So again, Matt is listening right now, but I know he's been working on the State of the City, so we could get this slide in there, and then we can have a booth out front on the 13th.
You might also, the mayor's gonna have that.
Thursday night, I'm
Wine
giving.
and cheese at.
Yeah, I
at
talked to
Fry's.
Bryant Powell today, the city manager, about getting him we have a little postcard that kind of has the same info on it. So we're going to make, I don't know how many people are going to show up. I just thought make a couple dozen of those, let people know about it and where to hit the survey. So again, the general plan, I think we need to change this a little bit. It's just, I think it's just AJGP 2020, Apache Junction General Plan 2020. So that's simpler than B5HBXH8. So I think it's simpler to tell people to go to that. The other idea is that we were thought about putting the little QR codes on there, and they tell us that a lot of folks don't use the QR codes anymore. So anyway, so February 13th, we're trying to have something for Bryant for the Fry's. We'll talk to folks about the Lost Dutchman Days. But again, if you are part of a group or you want us to come and speak at a group, we certainly will. And we're trying to go out to, I think it's okay to go to the back room at the Village Inn to talk about this, because there won't be a quorum of anybody, right?
That sounds clandestine when you say the back room.
It is a public process, and we do want to get as much public to know about the survey and get their, input into the plan.
Okay,
That's all I have, Madam Chair.
okay, thank you. Well, down to the selection of meeting dates, times, location, and purpose.
Madam Chair,
Yes,
before we have that vote, I would like to make a motion to reconsider the vote for vice chair to assure that all members of the commission
wait a
are.
minute, you can't do that, you can have it on the agenda for next time, right?
Make a motion to reconsider the vote, though, right?
You can make a motion to reconsider, and then that would be put on.
On the
for
next one.
Next time for discussion.
All I'm asking for is a vote to
Reconsideration.
reconsider. right?
Okay,
Correct.
Yes. So, that being said, I make a motion to reconsider the vote for the vice chair position to assure that all members of the commission that they clearly understand the
What they were
procedure
voting
before voting.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please, Rudy.
Commissioner Uli,
Yes.
Chairwoman Nesser,
Yes.
Commissioner Howard,
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck,
Yes.
Commissioner McGraw,
Yes.
Commissioner Kreidler.
Yes.
6 in favor, Madam Chair, the motion passes.
Okay.
Okay.
We're back to the selection of the meeting times, dates, location, and purpose.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I move that the Planning and Zoning Commission hold a regular meeting on February 12th, 2019 at 7 PM in the City Council chambers located at 300 East Superstition Boulevard.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please, Rudy.
Chairwoman Nesser,
Yes.
Commissioner Howard,
Yes.
Vice Chair Heck,
Yes.
Commissioner McGraw,
Yes.
Commissioner Kreidler,
Yes.
Commissioner Uli.
Yes.
So moved, Madam Chair.
And unless I hear any objections, I will adjourn this meeting at 8:11 PM. If anybody wants coupons